Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Dr. Vibe here with Ryan Knight. It is April 5th, and it is the morning vibe. For some people, they have today off. I know it's like schools in the Toronto area, no school today, but I think people like myself and Ryan, well, he told me he had some time off this weekend, so that's good for him. I don't know about me, but
Yes.
Ryan, what's been going on?
I feel like a lot of things are starting to align, even though there's a lot of announcements always being made. The time of execution for these announcements, I feel, is getting very close at hand. And like you said, the talk is, we're kind of done with the talk. Let's see the action. There's been promised action, deadlines put up. So we'll see if they hit these deadlines, and we'll analyze it and protest it again if it doesn't come through. So, yeah, we'll see.
How was your weekend?
Weekend was nice. My wife was working nights, so the kids and I go on day trips to make sure that she gets to sleep. And when we're back, we build forts and do dance parties on Just Dance. It was wild times, getting to listen to more songs from the 90s and the 2000s.
Oh, so you're getting some history lessons.
I know, right? Songs you completely forget about, but they're like number one hits, So
Right. That's good. And
how about you, sir? How was the weekend?
a little bit quieter, but still stuff to do. I looking at enlarging the team for the next few months. So looking at that, and it looks like that's going to happen in the next week or so, and maybe even doubling the size of the team. We'll see how that goes. So that was good. The weather was not too bad. It was okay. Yesterday was nice.
It was windy.
I wanted a little bit warmer, but we're getting there. We're getting there. So it was nice. It was nice. But people don't really want us to chat about our lives because they think our lives are boring. So, but today you want to talk about a particular topic today. What do you want to chat about?
Just before we hit that, there was few emails that I sent out during the week about the Ontario Small Business Grant, that they doubled the amount that you're getting. So if you did not apply and you qualify, shame on you. And you're lucky because the deadline was March 31st, but they extended it to April 7th. So if you are hearing about this for the first time, please get in contact with me. I'll show you the video walkthrough that we did. It takes 30 minutes. You're able to get between $10,000 to $20,000 as a grant to do what you wish for your business to help, I guess, navigate these times. And that between 10 and 20, you're going to get a double payment automatically. So do not miss it. April 7th is the deadline. But beyond talking about money and how to get more money into our entrepreneurs' hands, I wanted to touch on what collaboration actually looks like in our community. And when we're talking about working together as a community, I feel like every single organization will say it and talk the talk and be like, okay, we definitely have to work more together. There needs to be more unity in the community, blah, blah, blah. They go deep into, everybody has that pitch. But what does that actually look like? And when I was kind of thinking over the weekend about collaboration, and I'm thinking about our own partnerships, and there's different levels to partnerships. And a lot of times, so even for this show, there's a partnership between myself and Dr. Vibe. And we're saying, okay, we're going to work together every couple times a week. And there's nothing written official to say like this has to happen this way, but we have an understanding and we get it done. And then there's other organizations that will say, oh yeah, we'll send you a MOU and sign this, and you're kind of held to this standard. And again, you hear from our lawyers that say, oh, MOUs don't hold up in court. Then you have people that want specific contracts, like get it down paper, your lawyer sees it, my lawyer sees it, and like if you do not execute, I'm going to sue you. those different tiers in the community. And I always wonder, that's a very European type of view on collaboration and unity. And what does it actually mean for us? Like, have we ever sat down to decide what does unity mean to us as a community and create really our own constitution? like what is our guiding principles that it doesn't take an agreement or a pen to paper agreement. It doesn't take an MOU. Whatever you verbally say to somebody else is what you're going to stand by. And now all these organizations that say, yes, we should be working together. I always call it like you battle the system with your own constitution. And if you don't have one, when you say that you're working together, there's really no North Star. And recently there was a letter that went out that talked about how organizations can really sign off and then send a joint message. And it was interesting because a gentleman that I work with, Christopher Trotman, that's going to be joining us very shortly, started an organization called Calabash, which helps bring together a lot of the local, not just local, but service providers in our community. And what he's putting together, I feel like, is the personification of what collaboration could be. And especially when we're trying to go after bigger contracts and not just be a charity case in the community towards the government, but actually go after all this procurement that exists. An organization like Calabash is what is needed. And that's where we wanted to talk to Christopher to see why he put it together and what he feels actual collaboration is. But I did want to just touch on this letter that went out. So if you all remember, there was an organization called the Philanthropy Fund, and then it shifted its name to the Foundation for Black Communities. And they sent out a letter talking about a joint statement that they're going to be sending to the federal government on behalf of the Black community, which I felt was great. So you're hearing now a lot of the bigger entities that were created, like Black North Initiative, Black Opportunity Fund, the Network for the Advancement of the Black Community, all these big, BBPA, I believe, was aware of it, BBI. They also created their own coalition called Faces. So there's lots of pockets. And now this to me is the first time that we have a joint letter that a lot of organizations, I believe, have signed, and it's going to the government to say, hey, you need to be on top of this. So that's the conversation I wanted to see, to get your feedback on what collaboration looks like to you, and then also with Christopher and what he's putting together.
Well, you need to take a breath. Like, my gosh, I just feel like I heard the reading of the Declaration of the Black Canadian Independence off of that reading, but so that is good. But you know what? We want to bring our special guest on. So Christopher Trotman. Hey, Chris, how you doing this morning?
Hey, good morning, gentlemen. I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
Not too bad. Like, Ryan was reading the Independence. He didn't even give you a proper introduction. So Ryan, like, come on, man. Like, we got a special guest. You're reading like you're like Black Ben Franklin reading this document. And we got a special guest. Before we go any further here, joking aside, just want to say hi, heads up to Frequency Event Promotions, saying hello to myself, Ryan, hashtag collaboration. That's what it's all about. So, Ryan, can you give a good introduction to Mr. Trot, who's joined us this morning?
100%. And so Christopher Trotman is actually the owner of Trotman Communications that helps nonprofits really find their voice and help create a communication strategy. And I feel in his hustle time, or his free time, he created Calabash, that is an entity that brings together local service providers to work with nonprofits when they say they can't find Black experts in the community. We have now created a coalition that curates all the talent so that they can work with nonprofits to really help them help the community better. So it's my pleasure to introduce Christopher Trotman.
That's better. Morning, Chris. How we doing?
Good morning. Doing really well. I'm really glad to be on with both of you.
Yeah, I had the honor and pleasure meeting you during Ryan's event a few months ago now, and I'm happy to have you back here and sort of really have a deeper dive in this whole area of collaboration amongst Black organizations. So, actually, why did you start Calabash?
Sure. I mean, I think the idea of Calabash came about actually out of a conversation between myself and Ryan. We're both listed on a website that's been created by an amazing organization, Innoleave, which is a part of the McConnell Foundation. And they help organizations and support them to work with coaches for a variety of different capacity building areas. So a large focus on social enterprise, social entrepreneurship, and innovation within the not-for-profit space. However, when looking at their roster of coaches, both myself and Ryan noted that there was a distinct lack of diversity. We were maybe two of a handful of Black coaches, and outside of just Black coaches, there was a complete lack of diversity in their roster. So we thought about it, and I was like, okay, well, why don't we come together, create our own roster of coaches, of Black, Indigenous, and racialized coaches to service this much needed niche, not-for-profit organizations that are looking to work with racialized coaches to support their capacity building needs. Just recognizing that lived experience is valuable experience. And when you don't have that as a part of your team, as a part of your solution, you're really missing out on something. So it was a really direct and distinct need that was born out of something that we just saw.
And that's where the conversation we also had around nonprofits that always use that excuse they can't find the talent in the community. So they bring in these other experts that are supposed to figure out the problems for different marginalized communities, and they never take the time to really talk to the people in the community to find who has been experiencing this, who could help us actually design a program. So how does Calabash tackle that issue with like organizations saying they can't find the talent?
Mm-hmm. And I just want to highlight one thing that you mentioned. You didn't mention it in the introduction, but Trotman Communications actually specializes in working with community healthcare organizations. I bring this up because my own background is working in community health. I used to work as a communications officer at a local community health center. There's a lot of value that's placed in that sort of experience and that prior work experience, that experience in working in a particular industry. But it doesn't seem that same level of value is placed in lived experience, in experience of being in the community or knowing the community. But it's just as valuable for the same reasons. It allows you to scale up and get up to speed in a way that is more responsive, that is a lot like quicker than if you have to learn all of those things and absorb that information for the first time. But touching on your specific question, how do we actually address this issue of finding consultants for organizations to work with? We leverage our community. We leverage our network. We reach out to people through our collective networks. So just starting with myself and Ryan, and then reaching out to our networks, finding more people, and then through those people reaching out to their networks, and slowly bringing together a group of people that, number one, want to figure out how to actually structure Calabash so that it works in a way that services organizations effectively. But then number two, expanding that reach so that we're able to serve organizations across the country. So just slowly building on our networks by intentionally reaching out to people who have specific skills and then reaching into their networks to continue expanding.
So I have a question. Ryan has brought up in regards to organizations, Black organizations, saying they can't find Black people to fit in. So it brings me to a two-part. They can't find them, but also the other point is, can they afford them?
So two things I want to say with regards to that. Number one, this is not just Black organizations. There's a reason why Calabash has a distinct focus on Black, Indigenous, and racialized communities. And it's because, and specifically speaking about Indigenous organizations, the same challenges exist there. At least the organizations that I've spoken with have expressed that desire to work with Indigenous service professionals and just not being able to find them, not always being able to find them. Not to say there are no Indigenous consultants out there, just like that there's not a lack of Black consultants out there, but finding them can sometimes be a challenge in the sea of expertise that is often very white. And as it relates to affording our services, there are ways that we can work around that. So a part of what we do with Calabash is collaborate with organizations to find funding. There's a huge pool of funding out there. And Ryan mentioned the Foundation for Black Communities, and the unfunded report that they released showed that something like 3 cents of every $100 goes to Black organizations, Black-led, Black-serving organizations. My suggestion is part of that problem is that Black-led and Black-serving organizations just don't know how to go after the money in the language that these grant funders understand. So what Calabash helps to do is build the capacity of these organizations to find those dollars that can't be used for programming, that often has to be used towards capacity building. And then they can leverage those funds to pay for the consultants that we connect them with.
Ryan?
And we always talk about positioning ourselves in front of the flow of money. And when you were talking about Interweave earlier, so out of 110 coaches, there was 5 Black coaches, and Christopher and I were 2 of them. And that's where Interweave and the McConnell Foundation flow tens, close to hundreds of millions of dollars to nonprofits for them to use on consultants. So if a Black organization gets money, 10, 20, $100,000, that money is going to flow directly to white consultants. So it comes right through our hands into another community's hands. Exactly. And that's where I feel like Calabash helps to, pool those funds. So one, we help people get the actual grant, and now they can afford the consultants. That helps their organizations grow. But my question now is around seeing in the community that collaboration is so important. And the way that you've structured Calabash, what do you feel is missing with different organizations and them working together? Because everybody talks about working together. Do you feel like we're executing? Are we getting close to actual collaboration? Or are there some key that's missing?
Yeah, I think when it comes to collaboration, there's a constant tension, because quite frankly, collaboration takes time. To collaborate in a way that is truly open and transparent takes a lot of time. It takes a lot less time to kind of pool a small group of people, go into a back room and just kind of make the plan and move forward with it. It doesn't mean that it's going to be the most intentional, and doesn't mean it's going to be the most representative of the community's needs or desires, but it's certainly going to be quicker. And there's this balance that organizations need to strike between transparency, openness, and collaboration, and speed and efficiency. And what I think often happens is that the outside pressures that organizations have to face often force them into prioritizing speed and efficiency over transparency, collaboration, and that kind of openness that can facilitate a more open process. So while I might say from my perspective, many organizations could serve to be a lot more transparent, a lot more open, a lot more collaborative. And within the community, often what I see is organizations kind of close off. It's hard to get information from them or know exactly what's going on or be apprised of the process. I also understand that these organizations do face a lot of pressures to get things done quickly and efficiently. And that's not just pressures from the funders. That's and not just pressure from the institutions, but pressures from the community. The community has been waiting a long time to seek solutions. So it's a constant struggle. I do appreciate that. And I do have sympathy for that, but I do think that there could be a lot more openness, even in terms of the process, so people can see that progress being made, even if the solutions do take a bit more time.
You're hovering around a word that I have in the middle of my forehead right now, so I'm going to bring it out. Trust. How much does trust come into this? Like Black organizations trusting each other, Black organizations trusting funders. I think that is a central word in all of this. So what are your comments in regards to trust, in regards to the radical collaboration?
I mean, trust is the key word. Without trust, the kind of radical collaboration that we're talking about here could not happen. Like the number of projects that I've worked on with Ryan without having ever like signed a contract is ludicrous. Like a lawyer would probably look at it and be like, what are you doing? I'm like, I don't know. I trust him. Like I trust him. He trusts me. We have, an understanding, and it's all going to net out at the end. But that sort of system, I recognize, cannot always translate when you're talking about institutional relationships. So there is a lack of trust. Let's just kind of put it bluntly, and there's this kind of tentativeness as it relates to organizations in the Black community reaching out to the Black community for that collaboration, but also having full openness with funders and institutions, and for good reason. Like there's historic precedent as to why that trust does not exist between Black organizations and institutions, but that can also hinder the ability to collaborate effectively, like seriously hinder the ability to collaborate effectively.
Yeah, when I think about the whole area of trust, there's I don't watch a lot of TV, but one of the great shows that I do enjoy is a reality business show called The Prophet. And it's a gentleman named Marcus Lemonis. He owns very well off. He owns this chain called Camping World in the United States. And what he basically does is he has entrepreneurs submit to him. They want his help. And what he does is he'll go in, look at the business, get a deal, propose them a deal, whatever percentage for whatever amount, but he's 100% in charge, and he does it on a handshake. So if anyone wants, I love the show because it teaches you so much about business. But I wonder, when was the last time either people were watching this live or on replay or listening to this on the replay did a deal on a handshake?
Absolutely. And it actually got executed, because you watched a couple episodes and he does what he says.
Oh yeah.
He's done.
He doesn't play.
Right. And then that's where I've seen, and again, I'm guilty of this too, that kind of, you hold your cards to your chest and you try to build yourself up before you tell people kind of what's happening. But a lot of times I'll be approached from organizations that have now created this entire concept or philosophy. And it's like, oh, and now we need you to get on board with this right away. And I feel like this letter is somewhat similar, where yes, collaboration, I've been talking about this. We all should move with one voice and approach the government with, an ask, and not it coming from 10, 15 different places. But the letter comes out and it's due the next day. And it's like, hey, guess what? We created a letter. We need you to sign it. Tell everybody about it. And they have to sign it by tomorrow, 1:00. Like, just not involving the community with, okay, what's this letter going to say? Who's initially involved? Are we all signing off? And like, we could have been part of the co-founders and then get the community to sign off on it. Instead, it was, okay, we figured it out. Now get in line. And I try my best not to do that, but I do know I sometimes do. But that's where I feel like we don't do this right.
So, Christopher, that as what Ryan is saying there, again, reflecting back to that show, The Prophet with Marcus Lemonis, he has 3 Ps. He goes, people, process, and product. What about the importance of, when it comes to collaboration, the process? Can you just shed some light on the importance of process when it comes to collaboration?
100%. I mean, as Ryan was talking, I was actually thinking about Calabash and the process that we've put in place to create this organization. We have started working on projects together, but at this point, the organization is still very much a concept. It's still very much in motion. And that's because the process that we've put in place is a lot of collaboration, meeting, and not making decisions until we've had the opportunity to consult the group. I think process requires a level of organization that a lot of organizations struggle with. Kind of funny to say that, but process management is a skill, and it's not something that is really taught well anywhere. So it's something you kind of have to learn on the go. And regardless of how big the organization is, process management and developing clear and consistent processes is a challenge. So when it comes to collaboration, that same challenges translates over to the idea of collaboration, where you're not just developing a process for yourself, but you're developing a process to manage other people and their contributions and ensuring that they stay informed. But that is probably the most important part of collaboration, because without that clear process, number one, people will not be informed in a timely basis and on a consistent basis. And number two, because of that, they can quickly become disengaged. So even if you do bring people to the table, if you don't have a clear process and a roadmap that people can see of this is how we're moving forward, this is how we're getting you involved, these are the milestones along the way, those people that you've brought forward to engage in the collaborative process will become disengaged, and then everything kind of falls apart. So getting that process down pat and solid is crucial when it comes to collaboration.
Well, and then the disengaging is what reduces trust, and it's like the vicious spiral down.
Exactly.
You're trying to do something to build up trust, but the way that you're doing and the process that you're using is actually causing the opposite effect. And now when a lot of times, and you get the feeling that when a person is just asking you, he's like, oh, sign this, it's like they just need numbers and they actually don't want my input. And that doesn't build trust. And when we do open calls, and we've done them for Calabash, where we said, okay, hey, this thing is in its infancy. We want to hear from experts. What do you need? How do what supports have you gotten before? Do you know how to help your clients get funding? And we do these big calls to say, okay, come and give us your input. And then we finalize what it's going to look like. And I feel like it's still like an iterative thing, but
it's disrespectful.
Let's
just call it as it is. Let's not beat around the bush. It's like if you want me, you should take me and what I have to offer and what I have to say.
Yes, exactly. Not just, oh, we need your signature on it. It just sounds like a petition. Like,
well, I want to push back only slightly, because I don't disagree with anything that you're saying, but, and again, I'm just kind of playing devil's advocate a little bit, but it's kind of a struggle.
You're a sharp-looking devil, by the way. All right.
It is kind of a struggle for organizations, because on the one hand, you want to include people on that on the ground level, right? And ensure that you have their consultation and their opinions right from the start. On the other hand, I've encountered so many situations where when something is not in a polished final form, people are resistant to getting involved. So it's kind of like trying to tie that thread of like, well, at what point do I bring people in? Because to get the highest level of engagement, to get the best people, this has to have some level of completion, so people feel like they're coming to something that's already formed. On the other hand, it's during that kind of messy, muddy, like phase where the true magic happens, where the processes aren't yet built, where there's a lot of working to be done, where you really need the minds of people and their ideas to come forward, but where there's a lot more work and a lot more mess and a lot more mistakes that are going to be made. So it's kind of trying to strike that balance is difficult and requires a lot of
patience.
Yes, a lot of patience. A lot of patience on both ends.
Yes. Just want to catch up here, Yolanda. A lot of more saying the next day demand on everything is a killer for us. Frequency, event promotions saying you're welcome to the also saying collaboration is key. And I love this one. Quality equates to trust.
Well, that touches on what Christopher was just saying too. Like not coming to the table with something that is rough. Like, and again, because it can be rough. Like a lot of times when it's the different phases of what we're putting together.
Yeah.
A big thing that Christopher actually teaches me is around work plans and knowing what milestone, like what you're going to hit when. So when you're bringing people in at the beginning, they know, like, listen, this is the stage that this concept is in. Bringing a person in kind of further along, okay, this is where it's more fine-tuned and we need your help with guidance. And then when it's at the final product, it's not a rush thing. Like people knew what was going on along the way. And then when it's ready for the community to sign, they're aware of it. It's not, oh, here's the thing that we had been working on for a month or 2 months. And now it's done, sealed, like there's no editing, just this, accept this, and now sign it and put your weight behind it. And you're on a deadline, like Yolanda was saying. They want it the next day or that day. So that's where, like, an organization that calls themselves an incorporated nonprofit, they possibly have employees. I'm sure these organizations have executive directors. They should know about process. Like, I don't give it to them that, oh, they didn't know how to consult with the community, figure out how to involve people. That cop out. And again, big banks are now doing it. The government's doing it. They announced 200 plus million with no work plan and no process, and we're just supposed to accept it. And now they said, okay, something is going to happen. It's like, well, thanks. Like, something could happen anytime, but there's no real process. And why is it that our community or organizations are missing that key piece?
Yeah. So, Chris, what suggestions would you give to the Black organization out there, especially a little bit after a year now since the pandemic hit? You've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. And there is some real ugly out there when it comes to some real Black community organizations. What do you suggest to them, or did like a Bill of Rights? Like, if there's something for lack of, what would be some of the Bill of Rights that you would declare if you're speaking to a community organization, Black community organizations? What are some core things that they need to have in place in order to make those collaborations happen, whether it's with other organizations, whether it's government, whether it's with private funders?
Right. The first thing that immediately came to mind was ensuring you have your own house in order. So having any documentation that you would need that talks about your organization, your bylaws, your governance documents, your incorporation documents in order, kind of solid. So your financial statements, everything just kind of together, so that in instances where there are opportunities to collaborate, if those things are needed, you already have it. Bringing a level of professionalism to the engagement really, really helps. I think bringing a spirit of openness and transparency really helps. Something that I mentioned early on was this idea of holding your cards close to the chest, and how it kind of kills off the opportunities for collaboration. I think there's a fear out there that in vying for this kind of limited pool of funding that's made available to not-for-profit organizations and to Black organizations specifically, like, there is this kind of tiny pool of funding that historically has been available to Black organizations. And I think in a lot of ways that is what has led to this kind of holding our cards close to the chest, because you need to be the Black organization that's doing X, Y, or Z. And you're essentially competing against all other organizations who are doing X, Y, and Z, those doing the same thing. If we're able to kind of put that idea to the side and look at ways to collaborate together and see what opportunities exist to go after funding together, to develop programs together, I think it will lead to better results for the community at large. Because ultimately, organizations can't exist for their own, for existence's sake, to basically perpetuate themselves. They have been formed to benefit the community, and they really need to look at what can we do that best benefits the community. And more often than not, more collaboration benefits the community more than less collaboration. One thing that, kind of speaking from my own experience, working in the healthcare side of things, one thing that COVID forced healthcare organizations to do, community healthcare organizations to do, was form regional clusters. So organizations would come together and collaborate and discuss the issues on the ground as it related to COVID-19 and the issues that clients were facing. What these regional clusters have provided the opportunity for as it relates to healthcare organizations is more funding, because they're able to work together and lobby the government together and apply for funding together and look for opportunities that may not be right for one organization, but may be right for another organization. I think if that spirit of collaboration existed within the Black community, and recognizing that the Black community is diverse, it's not this kind of monolith, but if there was that sense of collaboration, that there would just be so many more opportunities that would open up.
You know, and it's interesting you mentioned about the health field, because especially in the GTA, I noticed a number of years ago, hospitals started collaborating together.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You didn't have that one hospital themselves. Like here, I live in Scarborough, which is part of Toronto. You have the Rouge Valley Health System, and it's made up of about 2 or 3 different hospitals. So if they're doing it at the top,
thank you.
Why, why try to reinvent the wheel?
Yes.
I'm just wondering. I'm going, we're missing out here, and I just have this concern that the window of opportunity for all this funding is only going to last a certain period of time.
Yes.
Agreed. Yeah. Yes. And if we can't figure this out now when the spotlight is on us,
well, it's beginning to fade a little bit.
Right. Like that window is closing.
Yeah, because there are other groups out there that are looking for help. And I've always been told that they do it better. They collaborate better. They have their differences, but when it comes to getting the bag, right, everything's put aside.
100%.
It's put aside. So, Christopher, thank you for your time today. I know that you're always on the go, but I know Ryan's, for some reason, Ryan has you on beck and call. I don't know how that happens.
I shouldn't have given Ryan my number. It really was that was my first mistake.
Listen,
oh my goodness!
We need to hear more about how the due process. Right?
Yes, we'll definitely have Chris come back on that. Chris, any final words, and how can people get in contact with you?
Sure. I mean, people are welcome to contact me through my trotmancommunications.com. My website's there. If you go to calabash.global, the website is not completely up yet. We have a landing page there, but I will receive your information if you send it to hello@calabash.global. The email's on the website as well. I'm more than happy to have a conversation and collaborate. And the one final thing that I would say is that part of what our hope is with Calabash is to serve as a bridge, a kind of nonpartisan organization that provides that access way for organizations to collaborate, even if they don't realize they're collaborating, in that when we create one solution for one organization, we'll share that knowledge so that other organizations can benefit. We'll provide bridges between funders and organizations, between organizations that are specifically advocating on behalf of the needs of the Black community. We're really just here to extend and serve as many community members and community organizations as possible.
Thank you so much. Have a great day, and remember to give yourself grace.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're no problem.
Mr.
Knight.
You see? Process is missing. And again, if we get this right, I feel like the letter was getting close. It has the right, I want to say aura, because that sounds too fluffy, but it has the right, we're on the right track, but we still did it without real process. And we are smart enough to know how to work together. It's just the execution of it is always, somehow it's missed. And like you said, the spotlight is fading. We're seeing other organizations and issues popping up that are very important, and the spotlight will shift. So we need to get our act together very soon. Actually, we should have got it together.
No, we have to get it together now, not very soon. And the thing is that I always say, when you work together, you win together. And the thing is that, going back to when the pandemic started, and last year I spent a long amount of time, most of last year, hearing the concerns of Black community organizations right across Canada. And a few months into the pandemic, I remember seeing a document with a collaboration of all the Indigenous groups in Toronto, social service organizations, put together what they needed, how much they needed, what they needed for it. And this document had all the organizations together for their ask. And unfortunately, and I don't like saying the Black community because I like to say Black environment because I want to know what the Black community looks like. What does that look like?
True.
But you know, I haven't seen that formal document with a number of Black organizations. I think we're in a time where we have to collaborate because the two key things, especially for a lot of organizations that are Black, in my opinion, going forward, is collaboration and data.
And this is like the root of what we call community, what we call environment. Back from our days in Africa millennia ago, it all started with the initial people that collaborated together, and then your community grows every single time. Every time we migrated and had to kind of create another town, country, city, what you want to call it, it was all collaboration. Everybody had their piece of the puzzle, and then you work together. And that has totally been, I'll say, dismantled. We have to bring it back together.
At the end of the day, folks, there's room for everybody, but there's rules to the game. And we have to stop playing checkers. Some will say we're not even at checkers yet, but we've got to stop playing checkers. We need to know how to play chess.
Agreed. Yeah, man.
So I'd like to say thanks for everyone who came in live or watching on the replay. Thank you, Frequently Event Promotions. Thank you so much. And others like Yolanda, thank you so much for watching live, watching the replay. We will see you again this Friday with either, at least both of us. Hopefully, and someone else may show up, but like, thanks for all your support. We look forward to it. Have an outstanding week. And remember to give yourself grace. And we'll catch you soon. So be well and keep the faith.